No, that's Uncle Sam, right? Uncle Sam. Everybody knows who this is. And if you haven't learned who this is, I'm glad I can introduce you to Uncle Sam. But what I want you to primarily take away from this picture is Uncle Sam's catchphrase, because that's what I always remember, is "I want you." And with that, there's actually a story in the Bible, in a book called Luke, that reminds me a lot of this thing from U.S. history. So if you guys are willing, I would love to share a story with you guys. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sweet. Starts like this. He, Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through. There was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he wasn't able to because of the crowd, since he was a short man. So running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. Okay, great. So our story starts by introducing us to this short guy named Zacchaeus. Not only is Zacchaeus short, the first thing that the story tells us about Zacchaeus is that he's a tax collector. And not only is he a tax collector, he's a chief tax collector. You may ask yourself, or ask me, Noah, why is that even in the story? Who cares about this guy's job? That's a great question. I'm going to tell you why. So, a tax collector during Jesus' day was one of the most hated and outcasted people in society. And for two main reasons that I can think of. The first reason is because this job was viewed as Zacchaeus turning his back on his own people. If you didn't know, Zacchaeus is a Jewish name. So Zacchaeus was a Jew. And a tax collector's job was under the Roman Empire. Y'all remember the Roman Empire memes, by the way? That I feel like so long ago. So Zacchaeus basically turned his back on his own people and took a job as a tax collector under the Roman government. So everyone saw him and was like, dude, you're one of us, but you're taking our money. So with that, not only is he taking just normal amounts of money, another reason why tax collectors were so hated is because they would take more money than you actually owed on your taxes. So let's say, what's your name? McKinley. Hey, give it up for McKinley. Okay, so you guys aren't adults, but when you become one, you'll learn that you have to pay taxes. So let's say that McKinley comes to me, and she owes $50 in taxes. Me being a tax collector, I would tell McKinley, hey McKinley, you owe me $75 in taxes. You're on the right track. So she actually owes $50. I told her $75. If she doesn't pay me, she gets arrested. So she gives me the $75. I take the $50, give it to the government. Where do you think the other $25 goes? Right in my pocket. So Zacchaeus not only takes a job against his own Jewish people, but he's robbing them of their own money. So, needless to say, Zacchaeus is not a very good dude. Hold on to that point, okay? Zacchaeus, not a good dude. So again, Zacchaeus, still short, he is trying to see who Jesus is. He's curious about who Jesus is, but he can't see because there's a huge crowd, kind of like tonight. But he couldn't see. So what does he do? He climbs up a tree, and that's where our story picks back up. The story continues like this. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus, hurry, come down, because today it is necessary for me to stay at your house. So he quickly came down and welcomed Jesus joyfully. All who saw it began to complain, he's gone to stay with a sinful man. But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, look, I'll give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I've extorted anything from anyone, Lord, I'll pay back 4 times as much. Today, salvation has come to this house, Jesus told him, because he too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost. Okay, so what just happened? So Jesus starts walking down the street, right? And he stops. He looks up in a tree, and he sees Zacchaeus, and what does he say? He says, Zacchaeus, hurry, come down. I want to stay at your house today. You guys think about that? Zacchaeus, well, hold on. Before we talk about Zacchaeus, Jesus, the God of the universe, in human flesh, is walking down the street. He stops. He's the kindest person to ever walk the face of the earth. He stops and looks up at Zacchaeus, who's one of the most crooked, broken men in that town. And what does he say? He says, hurry, come down. I've got to stay with you today. I want to be with you. The crowd very quickly reminds Jesus of who Zacchaeus is, right? They're like, Jesus, this guy's a sinner. This guy's not a good dude. And you know what? They were right. Would we agree with that? Yeah. You know what? Jesus also agrees with that. I don't know if you guys caught it. In the last verse, Jesus says this, for the Son of Man, talking about himself, Jesus, the Son of Man, has come to seek and to save the lost. Jesus himself calls Zacchaeus lost. So that begs the question, why would Jesus, the kindest man, the God of the universe, the most humble person to ever walk the face of the earth, want to hang out with Zacchaeus? Why would he choose to? Guys, my answer is pretty simple. It's not very complex. And when you hear it, you're probably going to be like, what? Because he wanted to. Let me draw that up. Jesus wants to be with people who make mistakes. Not only does Jesus want to be with people who make mistakes, Jesus wants to be with people who may think that they're a mistake, who may think that their lifestyle is a mistake, who may think that all they do is make mistakes. They think that their identity is a mistake, that their body is a mistake. Jesus wants to be with people whose lives are a mess, who have just wrecked everything, who have messed up really badly, and whose lives are all types of tangled, whether that's by the lifestyle that they've grown up in, or by the choices that they've made. And you may wonder why I'm up here talking to you about this guy named Zacchaeus, who's really short, and talking to you about another guy named Jesus, who I don't think was short. That doesn't really say. But I wonder if any of you struggle with messiness and mistakes in your own life. I wonder if any of you look at your own body, look at your own identity, look at just your lifestyle, and think, man, this is a mistake. Well, if that's true, I have really good news for you. Jesus sees every mess that you've ever made, every mistake that you'll ever make, every bad thing you've ever done. And despite all that, he still wants you. Jesus looks at you and he says, I want you. I want you. Despite everything, he looks at you and says, I want you. So my question is, as we wrap up, is will you come to Jesus? Will you take him at his word? Will you trust him? Will you follow him? Guys, we believe that God created each one of you. Every person in this room tonight is created by God. But based on these mistakes that we've made, the Bible calls these sins. And we've also been born into this world. Guys, we see it every day. We've been born into a sinful world. Just watch the news. And this sin has separated us from the God of the universe who created us and who loves us. But God was not content to leave us separated from him. So that's why he sent Jesus, his son. Jesus came and lived among people like us. He lived a perfect, sinless, mistakeless, I don't know if that's a word, life. Died on a cross that we see a lot. You guys see the cross all throughout our culture. He died on a cross to pay for all of you and my mistakes. But guys, if that was where the story ended, if Jesus is just on the cross and he's dead, none of this matters. Then we came here tonight, we had fun, and we sang songs, and it was great. We're going to go home, and this book's a fairy tale. But if Jesus got up, if Jesus rose from the dead, like we believe he did 3 days later after he was crucified, I can think of at least 2 reasons why that's important. The first is, that means that everything Jesus ever said was true. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if I saw somebody die, and 3 days later, he got back, like he's alive again, I'd probably trust him. You know, I feel like that's a safe, like, rule of thumb. With that as well, if Jesus really got up, if that's really true, that means he has the power to change your mess, to change your life. Guys, when I started following Jesus, my life was a mess. And Jesus has changed my life. And every leader in this room has had their lives changed by Jesus. So my question is, will you come to Jesus? Will you follow him? He wants you. He loves you. Will you follow him? I'm going to pray, and then we'll see what happens next. Jesus, thank you that you were not content to leave us broken and messed up. And that, just like Zacchaeus, you see our brokenness, and you still say, I want you, and I love you. Jesus, I pray that tonight we would take this seriously. That this book is not just a storybook with different people talking about you, but this is real. This is true. And Lord, I pray that tonight kids in this room would start following. That they would take you at your word, Lord. That's what you ask. That's all you ask. To leave behind this messed up life. To take you at your word. And to follow you. Lord, thank you so much for this time. Pray for safe travels going home tonight. And I just thank you for each kid in this room that just listened to me talk about you. We love you. All right, hey, what I'd love for you guys to do